They say if you see clothes drying by the river at night, do not ask who washed them, because some clothes don't belong to the living. And in our village, there was one woman who washed them anyway. If you love African horror stories rooted in folklore, spirits, and village secrets, subscribe now. These stories only get darker. The village of Adurawa was built around silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that listens back. At sunset, fires dimmed low. Doors closed gently, never slammed. Mothers called children home using their full names. Not nicknames, because spirits respect full names. And after dark, no one went near the river Kotoko. The river curved around the village like a scar. By day, it looked harmless. Brown water, slow current, reeds whispering to the wind. But by night, it remembered. The elders said the river was older than the village. Older than the forest. Older than death itself. They said it carried the voices of those who drowned, were buried nearby, or were thrown in without proper rites. And every night, long after the village slept, the river demanded attention. That attention came in the form of one woman. Her name was Abina. Abina lived alone in a small mud house at the edge of Adurawa. No children ran from her doorway. No laughter escaped her walls. She was thin, bent slightly forward, as if always carrying weight no one else could see. By daylight she was just a washerwoman. She washed clothes for the village. Baby garments, farming wraps, festival cloth. She worked quietly. Never complained. Never charged extra. But she never washed after sunset. Never. Some people swore they saw her walking toward the river at night. Barefoot. Carrying a basket. Moving slowly. As if the path pulled her forward. First no one said anything. Fear survives best in silence. The first sign something was wrong was not Abina. It was the clothes. One morning, just before dawn, old Papa Mensa found a wrapper laid neatly on a rock near the river. Clean. Folded. Drying in the breeze. He froze. Because that wrapper belonged to his wife. She had been buried 3 years earlier. Soon more clothes appeared. A child's shirt lost to fever. A hunter's trousers buried with him after a snake bite. A burial shroud that still smelled faintly of incense. Each morning perfectly washed. No mud. No blood. No stains. Panic spread slowly like rot. People whispered. Mothers burned herbs at night. Fathers checked locks twice. And everyone noticed one thing. Every piece of clothing belonged to someone dead. The elders met. They warned the village. The river is being fed. And whoever feeds it is already claimed. They told everyone to stay inside after sunset. To avoid Abina. To never ever speak to her at night. Then came the night I heard the washing. I was pregnant and restless. Her child kicked constantly, as if trying to escape her womb. She woke to a sound that didn't belong to sleep. A crab. Wince. The sound of cloth against stone. Her heart raced. 'Cause no one washed at night. Against her better judgment she stepped outside. Moonlight painted the village silver. And there, at the river, knelt Abina. Her back bent. Her hands moving slowly. Washing. Yes, I took one step closer. And that's when she saw it. The cloth Abina was washing wasn't ordinary cloth. It was a burial shroud. And beneath it, something shaped like a body. The river around Abina was crowded. Figures stood waist-deep in water. Watching. Some had faces. Some didn't. All of them waited. Abina stopped washing. Slowly she turned her head. Her eyes were pale. Me. And her voice came out wrong, layered, echoing. Go home, ESI. SI screamed. Ran. Before sunrise, I went into labor. The child was born alive, but silent. Its eyes never opened. From that night on, no one doubted. Abina was washing clothes for the dead. But the truth was worse than anyone imagined. Because Abina wasn't serving the river. She was paying a debt. And debts to spirits only grow. The elders used to say, when the river gives something back, it is only choosing what to take later. Abina learned that truth too late. Before the river knew her name. Before the dead began leaving their clothes on the stones. Abina was once a woman with a future. She laughed loudly. She sang while cooking. And she was loved. Her husband's name was Kwame. He was a fisherman, strong arms, gentle voice, the kind of man who spoke softly because he never needed to shout. Together they had twin daughters, Amma and Ajoa. The girls were inseparable. If one cried, the other cried too. If one slept, the other refused to wake. They were born beside the river. And the river watched them grow. During the dry season, hunger came to Adurawa like a quiet curse. The rains delayed. The crops shriveled. The river thinned, exposing mudbanks that had not seen sunlight in decades. Fish disappeared. Children's ribs began to show. And fear crept into every home. One evening, Kwame sharpened his fishing spear after sunset. Abina saw it and felt her chest tighten. She knew the rules. Everyone did. Never fish at night. Never call the river by name. Never take more than you give. She begged him not to go. She knelt. She cried. She reminded him of the twins. But hunger has its own voice. And that voice spoke louder than fear. Kwame kissed her forehead. I will return before dawn, he said. He didn't. At sunrise, the river was swollen. Not with rain. With something else. The villagers found Kwame's fishing spear first. Then his sandals. And finally, his clothes. Folded. Laid neatly on the same stone where Abina now washed. There was no blood. No struggle. Just absence. Abina screamed until her voice broke. She ran into the river, ignoring hands pulling her back. She cursed it. She slapped the water. She begged. And when the village dragged her home, she did not sleep for 3 days. On the 4th night she went back alone. The moon was thin, the water black, and the river spoke. Not with sound, with pressure. With cold that wrapped around her legs. With memories that were not hers. A voice rose from beneath the surface. Layered, wet, ancient. You call loudly for what was taken. Abina fell to her knees. Give him back, she cried. The water laughed. He is already worn thin. Her tears fell into the river. What do you want? She whispered. The water rose higher. And the voice answered. Washington. The river explained its rules. It was old. Older than death. It carried the weight of those buried without proper rites. Those thrown away. Those forgotten. It needed someone to prepare them. Clean them. Remember them. So they could pass. Wash their clothes, the river said. Wash their stains. Wash their memories. In return, it would give her something back. That night Abina washed. The river pushed clothes toward her hands. Some heavy, some warm, some screaming. She scrubbed until her fingers bled. Until her arms shook. Until dawn. And at sunrise, her daughters stood at her doorway. Alive, breathing, silent. The village rejoiced. They called it a miracle. They called Abina blessed. But the river watched. And waited. Amma and Ajoa were not the same children who had been taken. They did not eat. They did not cry. They stared at the river for hours. And at night, Abina would wake to find their beds empty, only wet footprints leading outside. She followed them one night and saw the truth. The twins stood at the riverbank, speaking to someone beneath the surface. Their voices were layered, not their own. The water answered them like a mother. Bina screamed. She grabbed them, pulled them back. The river rose angrily. You were given what you asked for. I didn't ask for this, Abina cried. You asked to take from the river, the voice replied. Everything taken must be worn down again. That night, Amma and Ajoa walked into the river by themselves. They did not scream. They did not look back. And the water closed over them gently. Abina tried to follow, but the river rejected her. It threw her back onto the mud. And the voice whispered, Now you owe. From that night on, Abina washed only for the river. Not to bargain, not to hope, but to survive. The clothes began appearing on their own, sometimes floating, sometimes crawling onto the stones, sometimes still worn by bodies beneath the surface. Abina learned not to look too closely. She learned not to listen. She learned that some stains never came out. People who died without proper rites came first. Then people who spoke badly of the river. Then people who crossed it at night. Abina tried to stop. She tried to refuse. The river punished her. Her joints locked. Her skin cracked. Her dreams filled with drowning mouths. Soon the river began asking for more. Not just the dead, the sick, the weak, the unborn. Children began falling ill. Pregnancies ended early. People disappeared near the river. And every time, new clothes appeared, waiting. The elders finally understood the truth. Abina was not cursed. She was bound. And the river was not done. Because every pact needs an ending. And the river had chosen its final payment. The elders of Adurawa believed they still had time. They were wrong. The river changed its behavior first. It no longer waited for night. By late evening, the water would rise slightly, just enough to touch the stones where the clothes were laid. It began to hum, low, a sound that vibrated in the chest more than the ears. Children complained of dreams where water filled their mouths. Old people woke coughing, as if they had swallowed the river in their sleep. And Abina began to slow. Her body was failing. Her fingers were permanently curled from scrubbing. Her nails were gone. Her palms were scarred raw. But worse than her body was her mind. She began forgetting names, faces. Sometimes she would wash clothes she didn't remember collecting. Sometimes she would find clothes already clean in her basket. And sometimes she would wake up wet. One night, Abina collapsed on the path to the river. Her legs refused to move. She crawled, dragging herself through dirt and leaves. But the river was impatient now. The water rose toward her. The spirits came out. They stood around her, not submerged, not hidden, standing on dry ground, their feet dripping, their faces half-formed, some familiar, some ancient. Kwame stood among them. So did Amma. So did Ajoa. Bina screamed. She tried to reach them, but her arms would not lift. And the river spoke, not from beneath the surface, but from inside her head. You are worn thin. I will wash, she sobbed. I will crawl if I must. You cannot wash what you are becoming. The river explained its final rule. It always did. Too late. A washer is not eternal. A washer is a gate. When the gate weakens, must be replaced. You have cleaned the dead. Now you will join them. Abina felt cold spread through her chest. No, she whispered. The river showed her the village. Children sleeping. Women pregnant. young girls fetching water at dusk. Choose, the river said. If Abina entered the river willingly, the village would be spared. For a time. If she refused, the river would take 3 living souls before sunrise. Bina laughed. Not from joy. From exhaustion. There will always be another, she said. The river did not deny it. Before dawn, Abina crawled into the water. The spirits parted for her. Kwame reached out. The twins smiled. And the river closed over her gently, like a mother tucking in a child. At sunrise, the villagers found Abina's clothes. Her brown wrapper, her headcloth, her worn blouse. Folded, spotless, still warm. They buried nothing. Because there was nothing to bury. For 3 days the river was quiet. The village breathed again. Children laughed. Women fetched water without fear. The elders said prayers of thanks. And everyone believed it was over. On the 4th night, washing sounds returned. But the figure by the river was not Abina. She was younger, her back straighter, her hands trembling with unfamiliar pain. Her name was Efua, a young woman who had lost her baby during childbirth. A woman who had cried by the river one night and been answered. Efua scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed. Her tears fell into the water, and the river welcomed her. The elders understood then. The washer is not cursed. She is selected. Grief opens the door. And the river always listens. Years passed. Washers changed. The river remained. Even today, the people of Adurawa follow the old rules. They do not wash at night. They do not speak to the river. They do not ask whose clothes are drying at dawn. 'Cause sometimes you recognize them. If this story haunted you, subscribe to Scary African Tales by Sanaa for more forbidden folktales. Comment below. Would you have made the deal with the river? And remember, some waters don't cleanse. They replace. You can also support this channel by giving super thanks.